I stood in the darkness and listened to the wind slip around the metal building. Cat bumped up against me. I could smell her in the darkness, some sort of light perfume, and I began to let my mind wander, but I snapped it back quickly. My hand skittered across the wall and found the light switch. Cat batted my hand away before I could turn it on, though. "Jesus, someone will see it, maybe," she said. Old habits die hard, I told myself. I forced my heart to slow down, and then I pulled a deep breath. Once I had my shit together again, I looked around the area, my eyes now used to the lack of light. The building was much more than a garage. There was a garage area to pull trucks into. One sat inside now, 2 large rolls of fencing in the back, and a dozen of long steel fence posts. I stepped forward toward a glassed-in room just past the truck, a lunchroom of sorts, or a break room. Vending machines lined the walls, and 3 tables set in the middle of the room with plastic chairs scattered around them, empty. Off to the left, a steel door separated another area. I was beginning to panic about the Mexicans. We had been gone a long time, but I forced myself to twist the knob on the door. It led to a hallway, a small office, bathrooms, and the door that led outside. I walked to the door and locked it, Cat trailing behind me. Her hand suddenly reached out and grabbed my shirt back. She gasped loudly as she dragged me to a stop. There was a glass wall that looked into the office, and my eye caught something. I had missed it as I walked past. There was a chair that had been pulled up to a window that looked out over the desert. A man sat in that chair, head cocked back, sleepy. I sucked a deeper breath. I took one step into the room, not sure what my intentions were, when Cat slipped by me, machine pistol in her hand, and walked right up to the chair. The guard never moved as she flicked the safety off and fired twice into the back of his head at point-blank range. I was so shocked that I froze. Time spun out, probably less than a second, but it seemed like hours. I could hear heavy breathing in the closed-in room, and I assumed it was me. I fought to slow it down for a few minutes before I realized it was the guard. Heavy, tortured breaths. He pulled one more and then let it out slowly. His chest stilled, mouth sagged open as his body relaxed, and he sagged back into the chair as he had been. "Got to get him out of here," Cat said. She seemed so calm, and it made good sense. I grabbed the armrest closest to me, and together we dragged the chair from the office and out into the garage. We rolled it up to the doors and looked them over. Electric, but they could be manually raised and closed with a set of pull chains that hung beside them. Probably a nod toward electricity that might not always be available in the desert. I pulled on the chains that dropped from the ceiling, and the door went up easily, squeaking as it went. We pushed the chair out across the cracked pavement and left it in back of one of the other buildings. The truck rumbled close by, the motor turning over smoothly. I could see the Mexican head back against the seat back. A moment later, we drove the truck into the garage and then worked the chains, lowering the door down once more. Early morning. We were on the road long before sunup. The Mexican was paranoid that the workers would be showing up before sunrise. I drove the truck with the fencing and posts in the back, and Cat drove the old truck. We left it abandoned in a dry wash a few miles away. With my luck, it would never be discovered. Just another weathered junker sinking into the sand. We made another small gas station just after daybreak and waited in the truck as the Mexican made a phone call. He was back in just a few minutes. A little town, somewhere up ahead. He was looking the map over. We get there and spend the daylight there. We go back to the other gas station tonight. I nodded. What else could I do? Cat said nothing, but Cat was good at saying nothing. It made me wonder where she'd ever found the time to say or do anything to get herself into the jam she was in. We were somewhere far south of Arizona, most probably in Mexico. The country and a few people we saw had that look. Trouble. I was less than a mile from the town limits when I saw the roadblock. I brought the truck to a screeching halt, more than a half mile away at the crest of a slight rise, nearly as soon as it had come into sight. I could see better than a half-dozen heavily armed men standing along the sides of two stripped-out desert trucks, pulled crossways, nose to nose, blocking the road. The men had immediately snapped to attention when they spotted the truck, and were now staring in our direction. One of the men had quickly jumped into one of the parked trucks, and I assumed, after seeing him speaking into a handheld microphone, had probably radioed someone about them. Not good at all, I thought. "I know these," the Mexican said. "See that red pickup off the shoulder?" I nodded my head. "The ones that ambushed me the other night. I recognize it. Somehow they had followed me. Only was two of them then. Looks like they found company." He cursed and then spat blood out the window. I forced my heartbeat to slow down so I could think more clearly. At first I had been positive that the men would get into the trucks and come screaming down the road after us. They hadn't. In fact, they seemed to be watching us to see what we were going to do. "I'm open to suggestions," I said. "First thing, Billy," Cat replied, "is to get the hell off the road. If they did radio someone, they're probably on the way. I saw a dirt road that cuts off the main road about a half a mile back. Might be smart for us to get down that so we can think this thing out before we're forced to fight it out right here." "That group will kill us," the Mexican agreed. "Back it up and go, Blinquito." "How far?" I asked as I punched the gas and squeezed the wheel of the truck. I bounced the truck down off the road, and the rear tires threw up rooster tails of dirt and grass as it slewed around and came back up onto the road. The tires spun momentarily, dislodging the sand. Then they found their purpose and propelled us back down the road and away from the roadblock. Behind us, we could hear the low pop of rifle fire from the direction of the roadblock. "Half mile, no more," Cat said. We were no more than 100 feet down the road when a pair of headlights appeared in the lane ahead of us. A beat-up sedan moving towards us. A blond-haired man leaned out the driver's side of the window, holding what looked to be a sawed-off shotgun. "Shit," I muttered. "What the fuck?" "Got it," I heard from the Mexican. I heard the wind suddenly rushing past me into the truck interior, and I realized the Mexican had opened the window just before I heard the loud chattering of one of the machine pistols. The blond-haired man fired the shotgun at the same time the Mexican began to fire. I saw the flash from the gun and heard a rattle from the front of the truck that sounded like hundreds of stones hitting the front bumper. The machine pistol continued to chatter from the passenger side seat, and I watched as dozens of holes appeared in the body of the old sedan, almost a straight line along the driver's side. The front driver's side tire blew out, and the car veered sharply toward our lane. "Hold on," I yelled as I spun the wheel and we left the road. The truck bounced when it dropped from the road and entered the ditch, but I kept it under control, and without letting up on the gas, I angled it back towards the highway just as the car began to flip into the ditch a few feet away from us. I knew it would be close, very close, I amended. A line of trees flew by on the passenger side of the truck, scant inches from the glass, and then the truck lurched once more as it left the ditch and rocketed back up onto the highway. The two vehicles missed by only inches, and I had found myself looking into the lifeless eyes of the blond-haired man, hanging loosely out of the window for just an instant before the car was by us and rolling into the ditch. I got the truck back up onto the road and floored it. When I came to the dirt road, I almost blew right by it, but I managed to slow down enough to slide into the entrance somewhat under control. The tires screamed and the smell of rubber burning was strong inside the truck. I barreled through the first curve at better than 50 miles an hour. Once I was around it and hidden from the road, I slowed down. I rounded 2 more curves before I stopped the truck and turned around facing back toward the main road. Thick, choking dust from the dirt road wafted up into the air. No way are they going to sneak up on me, I thought as I watched the road and strained to listen. A few seconds later I heard the high whine of a vehicle on the highway, but it didn't slow down, and the high-pitched whine of the motor dwindled away to silence in a few seconds as it continued onward, apparently looking for us on the highway. "Must not have seen the dust we kicked up," I said. "Or pretended not to see it," Kat said. When she spoke, we heard a muffled explosion in the distance. Think that was the car? Could have been, the Mexican said. Kat was studying the Mexican's map once more. It's a good thing we didn't break off to the left, she said. Why? I asked. River, she stated calmly. About a mile or so in the opposite direction. We would have been trapped if we'd gone that way. It looks like we got open land ahead here. At least it looks that way. It's hard to tell. I looked back along the dirt road. Thick dust still hung above it. There's no way they missed us, I said. Unless they're blind. They had to see that dust hanging in the air. And if we keep going, we're going to kick up even more, and they'll be able to follow it right to us. I think you are right, amigo. But what else can we do? The Mexican asked. Turn around and go back, I said. I held up my hand to silence the outburst that erupted at the suggestion. Listen, if we sit here, they're going to come back, probably with more men. If we head back to the roadblock now, we have the advantage. I would bet the sound we heard of a passing car was one of the trucks. If so, that leaves only one, and far fewer men to contend with back there. If we wait, the odds are only going to get worse. See? He is right, I think, Kat said. I don't want to die any more than any of us do. Sitting here isn't going to help us at all. Going back before they have a chance to regroup might. Only thing to do, the Mexican sighed. If I gotta die, I'd rather die fighting. He reached under the seat, felt around, pulled the last pistol out, and handed it to Kat. Don't shoot me, Chica. He turned to me. And don't think this means you are running this deal, Blanquito. You either, Chica. I nodded. So? I asked. We go back, Kat said decisively. She thumbed the safety off the pistol. The Mexican grunted a short yeah, which we could both tell he was not enthusiastic about. I dropped the truck back into drive and began to move back down the dirt road, gaining momentum as I neared the highway. I slowed and turned onto the highway after looking in both directions and seeing nothing. Ahead, approximately where the car wrecked, we could see greasy black smoke billowing into the hot, still air. Could be some of them there, too, Kat said, as she stared toward the greasy smoke in the distance. If so, I'll be ready for him. I nodded my head and brought the truck up to speed, slowly, to hide the whine of the motor, which would hopefully allow us to take the roadblock, or whoever might be at the burning car, by surprise. As we neared the burning car, I could see one of the stripped-out desert trucks off to the side of the road, along with the red pickup that the Mexican had pointed out to me. Looks like it, I said calmly, as I leaned back into the seat to give Kat a clear shot through the driver's side window. The young blonde-haired kid from the car was a lifeless lump on the side of the road, along with two other crumpled forms that I assumed must also have been in the car. A group of 3 men stood over the bodies. They heard the approaching truck and suddenly jumped for cover as we roared by. Kat's pistol chattered briefly, directly in front of my face, and the tires of the red pickup exploded loudly. I pressed the gas pedal as close to the floor as it would go as we passed, and almost simultaneously heard the sound of breaking glass from the rear of the truck, along with a steady plunk, plunk, plunk as bullets slammed into the tailgate. A sudden cry of pain came from Kat a split second later as several small crystals of glass flew forward, striking the dashboard in the back of my head. What happened? I shouted. You okay? I was trying to look her over and drive at the same time. Got her, the Mexican shouted above the roar of the engine. A second later, Chica don't look so good, Billy. It sounded like Chica don't look so good, really. Shit, I muttered as I tried to press the gas pedal further into the floorboard. Shit. The intersection where the roadblock had been appeared in front of us a few seconds later. Whatever had gone by us on the highway had not been the second truck. It still set across the road, blocking the right-hand lane. The left-hand lane was blocked by the second truck and 4 men, who were not armed with shotguns, I noticed as we neared, but some sort of machine pistols similar to the ones we carried. I was just about to slam on the brakes and try to turn around once more when a quick glance in the mirrors showed the other truck coming up behind us. What the hell, I thought. These guys must think they're playing some sort of fucking games with us. Aloud, I said, we're screwed. They're in front of us and behind us. Here. The Mexican shoved the other machine pistol at me. I took it and nodded grimly. Fuck it, we're going through. Hold on. I leaned partway out the window and began firing as I drove right at the roadblock. The Mexican pushed Cat down on the seat top. He turned, leaned out the blown-out rear window, facing the car behind us, and began firing. 2 of the 4 at the roadblock dropped immediately, but the other 2 were returning fire even as they ran to the cover of the right side truck, and I could feel and hear the bullets slamming into the truck, both front and rear. I looked up at the rearview mirror and watched the truck behind us suddenly swerve and then flip. The Mexican let out a scream of triumph as he turned back to the front and began to fire at the roadblock ahead of us. The side of the truck began to take on a chewed appearance within seconds as both machine pistols were trained on it. Still, the men behind it returned fire. We were now less than 100 feet from the roadblock I saw. "Sit down," I yelled. "Now." I aimed the truck toward the truck nose on the right, just close enough so that I would clip the front end of it as he went past. The 2 men behind it realized what I intended to do too late. The heavy work truck hit the front of the other truck harder than I expected, so hard, in fact, that it sent it spinning into the ditch like a toy. My rib cage collided with the steering wheel hard, but I rebounded just as quickly. The Mexican sat stiff-legged, one arm jammed into the steel dashboard on that side, the other wrapped protectively around Cat, where she lay half on and half off the front seat, partly spilled into the floorboards. The airbag let go. A chunk of thick plastic hit my forehead, and then my entire sight line turned white. The collision with the corner of the one truck and the full fender of the other truck ripped the front fender off our truck, with most of the passenger door. But our truck was heavier by far, and it passed through, scattering both of the other trucks like toys. I saw the Mexican lower himself toward the seat, folded over Cat protectively, and I felt a few splinters of glass embed themselves in my cheek before I squeezed my eyes shut to protect them. The bag billowed, and I thrust one hand pushing away and down so I could see. I felt the heavy bumper of the truck torn half off and the collision let go, and I opened my eyes to see it shoot up a shower of sparks as we bounced over it, leaving it behind in the road. I kept the gas pedal jammed to the floorboards, even though steam was beginning to pour from the front of the truck, and the motor was starting to wheeze ominously. A heavy vibration ran through the truck, and as it gained more speed, the vibration became a heavy shuddering that threatened to shake the truck to pieces. 2 miles down the road, I spotted a used truck dealership and slid the dying truck to a stop in the cracked asphalt parking lot. "Out!" I shouted as I quickly jumped from the truck and ran around to the passenger side. The Mexican tumbled out the window, Cat in his arms, and we carried her between us, struggling to reach the small doors of the office. Chained, I saw. The place was closed. I turned and fired a short burst at the aluminum and glass doors without slowing, and they shattered into a million crystals. I kicked the remaining sharp edge of glass out of the frame, and we hurried inside with Cat. I stared back out of the small parking lot, expecting to see the remaining truck come screaming in, or some other truck if the one behind us had truly wrecked. I didn't think either truck at the roadblock would be moving any time soon. "The suitcases," the Mexican said, turning towards the doors. "No way am I leaving them in the truck." He was moving pretty good for a man with holes in his head and his chest. I nodded. "I guess the other car will be along in a minute. Why don't you wait with Cat? I'll get it," I told him. "I got it," the Mexican said. As he nodded, blood once again dribbled from his forehead. "Dude, you have a fucking hole in your head," I told him. "It's not a hole. It just grazed me," he replied quickly. My mouth fell open. I forced it shut after a second. "What happened when you made the guy realize that he really did have a hole in his head?" "He died, probably." "Okay, grazed. Still, it's bleeding a lot. Take care of the girl. I'll get the suitcases before that truck comes. I'll be right back." "I don't think so," the Mexican replied icily. "It flipped. I blew out the front tires, and I'm pretty damn sure the driver was dead at that point." "Okay," I said. I didn't question what he said at all. "I'll go. See what you can do for Cat?" He nodded his head as I turned and ran back out of the showroom toward the truck where it sat still smoking. The truck was totaled. The metal grillwork was gone along with the bumper, and I could see now why the Mexican had jumped through the window when we stopped instead of opening the door. The door was crushed shut. Along with that, both the front tires were rapidly going flat, probably from running over the bumper. A bullet would have blown them out immediately. A huge puddle of oil was spreading from under the truck, and green antifreeze dripped from what was left of the radiator. I climbed into the rear of the truck and grabbed 2 of the suitcases, heavy, and ran for the showroom. I threw them inside, watched them slide across the wooden floor, and then ran back to the truck for the other 2. As I was making the second trip to the showroom, I wished I had thought to pull the truck out of sight. The steam was still rising in the air from the hood area, and it would serve as a beacon if there were others, and I was pretty sure there were. I was remembering the sound of a vehicle screaming by on the highway when we had been hiding on the dirt road. There had to be at least one more of them. I reached the relative safety of the small office and set down the suitcases. The Mexican stood and slowly shook his head as I approached. I looked down and saw that Kat's shirt had been cut away. One large hole had been punched through her upper shoulder, leaving a blue-black bloodless hole. Her eyes blinked rapidly as I knelt beside her. "Hey," I said. She looked at me, pulled another breath, and then her eyes slipped shut. She had a smile on her face, as if she knew some secret that I could only guess at. I froze for a moment, and then reached down and shook her shoulders. "She's okay, Billy," the Mexican said. "I gave her something. We need to get her someplace where I can stitch her up. Or you. Listen, I don't want to sound hard, or as if I don't care, but right now, unless we just want to give up and die, we need to get ourselves in gear. If it wasn't one of the trucks that blew by us while we were on that dirt road, and we know it wasn't the red pickup, someone is still out there. And once they get their shit together, they'll come back for us, amigo. And there has to be some locals of some sort around here. Eventually one of them is going to show up. Or federales. Maybe locals. What you need to do, Billy, is get us another truck so we can get back across the border and make that meeting. Put this behind us," the Mexican said. I looked around the showroom. I don't see any here, which means I'm going to have to go back outside to find one. Which means, I looked at the Mexican, you need to keep watch in front. I'm going out the back door. I walked over to a small plywood board to one side of the double doors and began to search through the key tags that hung from it. "Hey, take a quick look out front and tell me whether you see a light green Ram out there. About 10 years old or so." I continued to search through the keys as he looked. "See, out by the road," he replied. "How about a two-tone red and white Chevy?" "No veo nada." "No, not out here." "Good," I said, as I dropped the remaining keys in a heap by the board. I had kept 2 sets out. Apparently there were 2 green Rams, another out back somewhere, along with a two-tone Chevy that had possibilities. "Okay, I'm going to get it," I said, as I turned and walked down a hallway in the direction of the back of the building. I turned back. "Cat?" I asked. "She's safe, amigo. Go. I'll keep watch on her." I turned and walked down the hallway through a set of double steel doors and into a small garage area. I searched the garage quickly, but no red and white Chevy or green Ram resided in the shadowy interior. I walked to a set of double steel doors set into the back of the garage, pressed the bar handle, and stepped out onto the back lot. I found the Ram first directly behind the rear of the garage, checked the stock numbers, and also determining which set of keys went to it, opened the door and got in. A low chiming greeted me as I opened the door. The Ram was one of the upper-level models. It was also not four-wheel drive. The tires were not much more than passenger tires, and when I turned on the ignition to check the gas gauge, the needle stopped just above empty. "Fuck," I said to myself. "This one is not going to do us a hell of a lot of good." I found the other truck farther back in the lot. It was a low-end model, built more with a hunter or some other type of sportsman in mind, and much better suited to our needs. Plain, stark vinyl interior, and the gas gauge leveled out at half when I checked it. Not great, but a lot better than the other truck, and we didn't have the time to pick and choose. "This is her," I told myself. I started the truck and drove out of the back lot toward the front of the dealership. I had been tensed, expecting to hear the chatter of machine pistols while I was out back, and when I drove by the glass-encased showroom and saw the Mexican crouched by the side of a car on the showroom floor, I breathed a sigh of relief. I just caught his waving hands out of the corner of my eye before 2 men jumped out from behind one of the trucks in the front row and opened fire on me. Too late, I thought, as I realized that I had left the machine pistol laying on the front seat instead of keeping it in my right hand where it should have been. I could hear the sound of a machine pistol behind me as the Mexican opened up. I did what I could, and I aimed the truck at the 2 men, levered the door handle, and prepared to jump, just as the windshield, hit by several of the rounds fired by the 2 men, was blown inward. My world faded to black. Aftermath. I came awake with sunlight streaming in through the windshield of the wrecked truck. I looked around at the ditch, but there was nothing to see in any direction. I was somewhere in Mexico, but where, I wondered. I thought back to what I could remember. The drive into the town in the early morning had seemed uneventful, right up until the attack had come. Afterward, I had berated myself, cursed myself for not taking all of it more seriously. But I knew that the truth was that none of us had. None of us had, and now I was the only one left. The only one left, and I was alone because of that decision. 1 second it had been silent, birds whistling from the trees, and the next a roaring fireball had erupted from the 2 gunmen. The truck had lifted into the air, engulfed with flame, and come back down a split second later, a twisted, shattered wreck. The roof ripped open crude as if a giant can opener had done the job. Glass gone, body twisted, blackened shapes still moving, clearly seen through the flames. I had hit the brakes, somehow convinced I had driven over something in the road. The Mexican, maybe Cat, and that had distracted me further. As I had lifted my eyes, I had seen the men squatting beside another truck run forward towards a car dealership office. The truck had bounced back down, all but destroyed, and meandered across the road where it rolled down into the ditch. That was all I had, probably all there was until now. How long ago had that been? I wondered, as I pushed my way from the steering wheel and the crumpled remains of the scorched airbag. The door levered open, a miracle, I thought, and I went to step down to the ground and fell instead. My hand clutched as a seat as I fell sideways, and the strap of the machine pistol that was there came with me as I went. The truck burned nearby. I puzzled over that. I couldn't remember the truck at all. As I passed it, I could feel the heat from the fire. I froze for what seemed like a long time, trying to orient myself, make sense of what I last remembered and what I now saw. Time did nothing to sort it out. It still made no sense. All I knew for sure was that time was disappearing, and the locals, federales, or whatever there might be around these parts would be here soon. Pain had flared everywhere, and the black curtain had threatened to descend once more. I looked up. The moon was high in the sky, bloated, silver. I moved slower, and while it had been close, I had managed to fight past the first pain I had moved. My leg was bad, not broken, but cut badly, maybe sprung. I couldn't tell. I used part of my shirt to wrap my leg as I let my head clear. That was when the Mexican staggered up to me, dragging Cat. He said something, but I had no real comprehension of his words. I blinked and he was gone, and that was when I realized he had never been there at all. My head was worse. Pain inside every time I tried to move too fast. It felt like liquid sloshing around my head, and my brain shifting with it, slamming into the bone cage of my skull. And I wondered if it were true, if my brain really was sloshing around in a sea of blood, slamming into the bone cage that was my skull, or just something my mind provided in explanation of the pain. As I sat, the pain eased enough for me to stand. Standing helped to ease it even more, and I began to search. What was left was hard to understand. At first, pieces, an arm here, a leg there, bones blackened in the wreckage, a pool of blood where someone had lain, No other blood anywhere, and more than enough pieces and bones to make me sick. The office was empty. There was a small puddle of blood near the steel doors, but I refused to believe that meant anything at all. I carefully walked the back lot. Nothing. I may have gone on until I ended up in a Mexican prison cell, if I had not suddenly remembered where I was and what my situation was. I had limped back into the office. I took the set of keys for another Chevy pickup and headed out back to find it. I had found the truck and yanked the door open when I found myself doubled up and vomiting on the broken asphalt. Vomiting had pulled the pain back full force, and I found myself curled into a ball of pain once again. I forced myself up into the truck, started it, and drove it to the back door. A few moments later, I had wrestled the black bags into the trunk and was driving from the lot. I passed a small group of villagers a few hundred feet past the car lot and idled to a stop. "Hable English?" I tried. "Hable?" I was rusty, no doubt. Was it hable or hablo? I couldn't get my brain to work, it seemed. "Si," an old woman said with a heavy accent. "Man, amigo, chica, my friends, a girl and man, did you see them?" A young girl, maybe 10, spoke up instead. "They took them." She turned and pointed down the road. The old woman spoke and the child waited. "Sonora, a little place outside of Sonora. Mother thinks they will kill them, or they are dead already. If they live, they will ransom them. She says, Vamos, la federales will be here soon." I nodded. It was enough to know, and there wasn't a thing I could do about it. Right now I needed to get somewhere and fix myself up, and the black cloud that had been drifting closer to me descended completely and slipped over the edge of the dark.